Hello and welcome to another episode of Football-Asides. I'm your host, Glo, and joining me today is a dear friend of mine, OG. OG, welcome to the pod.
Hello, Glow. Glad to be here.
Thank you for joining me. I greatly appreciate your company and insight, virtually, obviously. How are
Yeah.
you? Where are you right now?
I'm currently in New York, in my apartment, trying to survive this heat wave without an air conditioner.
Oh,
Uh,
that is. Oh, I'm so
yeah,
sorry. It felt like 110 degrees today, which I just think should be illegal as a temperature, but that's just my 2 cents.
yeah. Yeah, 110. I mean Fahrenheit. Like for those who don't follow, it's in Fahrenheit, not in Celsius. But
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine if that was in Celsius? Just like
I mean, could we live if it was in Celsius? I don't think so.
I feel like that's like you're dead, right? Okay,
Yeah, pretty much.
I will not try and do the math of converting Fahrenheit to Celsius. Those days are behind me. This is why we have Google now.
Yeah, no.
um
So yeah, I've been
but
in New
yeah, anything how's the faithful reopening in the city?
Um, New York is a change city. Coming back to New York, it's a change city. Like I left right as the pandemic was beginning. I went home to be with my parents. And I've been there for 3 months, and then I came back, and it's like the restaurants are all on the street. And most people have masks on, and now it's like everyone is just walking around people in New York. So it's just a change city. The subway is virtually like empty like all day. Like I went there what would normally be rush hour, and like I could get a seat and there was no one around me. So it's just a change city.
Oh my God, I saw this very funny Instagram video that was making the rounds about this it was this man on the subway, I think New York, and he was like this guy walks in without a mask and then he like basically does a full split on the chair so no one can sit next to him. And I was like, one, that's the level of caution I endorse, and it's also the level of pettiness I stand for. So it was
Yeah.
delightful.
Yeah, no, I think like I was in Indiana with my parents like coming here. I think the mask wearing is definitely higher. Um, like more people are definitely are wearing their mask and they are more serious. And I guess because like New York was definitely one of the harder hit states at the beginning, so makes total sense.
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense, and I'm glad that they're taking it seriously. I've obviously you and a number of other friends in the city, and they feel safe and like that it's being handled, which is good because it doesn't always feel like that in some spaces. But
Yeah.
yeah, but to the football. So today, OG and I are discussing some greatest relegation escapes. We figure it's the end of the season. We want to talk about like what have been some really good moments where we've seen like a team like escape relegation truly in short of miraculous circumstances. But before we get to that, we did want to touch on what relegation is happening across top five leagues at the moment, as those will be our primary focus for the relegation escapes. OG, what's happening in the Prem?
The Prem relegation wise, Norwich is officially relegated. They've had an interesting season, beating City twice, I believe.
They started
Uh,
out so well, right?
they did, and it kind of fell apart. So
Remember
maybe
when
they
we were
can,
talking about Timu Puki potentially winning the Golden Boot and then it just did not go?
yeah, and like Todd Cantwell has been a great player, so it's like maybe they can go back to the championship and rebuild the team. And I mean, their time in the Prem has helped them get some financial stability, so that's definitely a plus, I guess. And maybe with this, they can go to this championship, rebuild, and come back to the Prem even stronger. So
Yeah, I've been told that Norwich is like the best team to be relegated in a minute. I mean, I'm not sure if I like fully buy into the perspective. However, I think to your point, they didn't really buy any big like money acquisitions. They usually set teams back when they go back into the championship financially, And the problem I've seen with their play is they can play very well for some spells in the game. They just can't play full games that well. And
Yeah,
obviously, to stay up, you need to win games, you know?
yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's not been the easiest season for them. So
Yeah, I really will miss Daniel Farker though. He just seemed like a lovely person, and just like I love watching his interviews generally. Yeah, but on
yeah,
that note, though, in the Prem as well, it is important. Like Bournemouth and Villa, at time of recording, are both at 31 points, and but that's only 3 points away from safety. So with two more match days left, it's actually all to play for. So I can't for sure call. Do you have any hint on who might get relegated?
honestly, I mean, I think Aston Villa and Bournemouth probably like going on chances will probably get relegated. Like it's just like Aston Villa has Arsenal and West Ham, so they could potentially get like points at any of those games. Like the Premier League as a season has been weird, and I mean I've loved watching Jack Grealish captain his boyhood club through the season, and I mean I hope he's able to keep them up. I'm not sure how much longer he will be at the club, but it definitely would be a nice parting gift to be like he was able to help keep them up and stay in the Prem. Um, Bournemouth, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how, I don't know how they go through. They have only one more game against Everton, and so it could end up like I think their chances are slightly bleaker than Aston Villa, who still have two more games to play.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bournemouth might be a goner for me, but on the Villa, I think Villa might be able to pull it out. And actually, my contender might be West Ham to take the unfortunate drop. I think okay, here's why I think this, right? I think like United definitely for sure need to win the next game. So there's
Yeah,
like great motivation on that front. So that's like what I'm thinking. And then if you have them if say they lose that game or even if they do draw and Villa gets some points at or like they win at Arsenal, they do West Ham play Villa on the final day, so I think that could like really set up a cracker for the last day,
I
the
mean,
final match day.
but like you also have to think of Watford, right? Watford is going up against City and then Arsenal as their next two matches. Man City. And I mean, Man City just lost to Arsenal, so I have a feeling they're probably going to come back and want a statement victory. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't see them really make like Watford making much progress. But I mean, Watford were the first to beat the current champions, Liverpool, this season. So
Yeah.
you never know what happens in football. And then Arsenal on the last day, and Arsenal right now is fighting for like European soccer. I mean, they have two avenues right now. They could try and get it through the Premier League or by winning the FA Cup. So I mean, you could see them like really going at it. So I'm not sure Watford really has a good path out of it, like in terms of like their upcoming fixtures. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think the relegation battle for this will definitely go down to the last day.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, the same thing. Like, there's some interesting things also happening at the top end of the Premier League too. So
Oh God. Yeah, that's actually super exciting. That will definitely go back to the final day. I
yeah,
mean Chelsea is sitting at third right now, but I'm not sure if it's going to end up like that. And I know it looks like very much for like the four European spaces, which are no longer going to be five because CAS has obviously reversed the ruling by UEFA, so City will definitely be in the Champions League. So that leaves two more spaces.
yep,
And I think it's really going to go down to the Leicester United game on the final day.
yeah. And as a United fan, I wish like that's just gonna keep like just give you like a heart attack on that last day as because like it's just gonna be wow. Can we just beat Leicester? It's gonna be yeah. I'm looking forward to the game, but it's gonna be one of those like anxious games where it's like you're on the edge of your seats, like because any mistake could end your Champions League hopes.
Well,
I mean,
for those who are not a team that is not anxious is Real Madrid. So, because Real
yeah.
Madrid has won the title on the second to last match day. And Zidane's man, I mean, he did say he wanted to focus on La Liga, and he has delivered. How have you made, um, what have you made of the Los Blancos finish?
I mean, it's been. I mean, like I felt like it's just been. It's not necessarily like a grind in the sense like. I mean, they haven't been winning by massive margins, but they've been able to get the wins when it counts. Like I think coming out into the post-lockdown games, like Barcelona was ahead, but Barcelona haven't been able to get those wins when it really counts, and that's been key. And I mean, Sergio Ramos like becoming like the penalty meister for Real Madrid. So
He's gotten like 20 plus in a row, something like ridiculous, like 22, 23 in a
yeah,
row, hasn't missed. So yeah, he's come onto his own.
yeah. So I mean, all like hats off to Real Madrid for clinching the title. I mean, now they have the ability to focus on possibly coming back in the Champions League
Yeah.
against City.
What does it mean for Barcelona, do you think? And Kike Setien, like the team overall, potentially Kike Setien's future at the club?
Um, I mean, I feel like, I mean, I love the storylines coming out um, of this season for Barcelona have been about how the club has been in like quote unquote a free fall. Like, I mean, coming in second in a closely fought title race, I'm not sure how much of a free fall is, but feel a lot of people are looking to the point that Messi's aging, the squad is aging, and they don't seem to have a plan going forward. So, I mean, it's almost inconceivable for us to think that Messi could retire. Like I grew up watching him, and it's just been marvelous. But Barcelona needs to think of going forward, and I don't think Kike Setien is going to stay as the manager of the club. I thought they were thinking of bringing in one of their was it Xavi as their manager.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think I agree. And I was talking to a Barcelona fan yesterday, and he very much expressed like similar sentiment. Like, as obviously he has like closer ties to the club, but to him as well, it seems that the again, it's kind of crazy to say that in one sentence that perhaps like Messi's brilliance has like hindered the opportunities to for long-term planning because he's just so good that he has been able to pepper over so many cracks. And that's just not on the field as well. It's like structurally the number of like presidents they're going through. It doesn't like seem that there's a vision. I do worry a little bit about like bringing in Xavi because I think the really good point that was made was that Griezmann was actually not a bad addition to the team, but Barcelona like is all about like the Barcelona DNA, which I think at
yeah,
times can make them reluctant to like embrace people who've come outside of that system, even though even though that can always like add great value.
yeah, and I mean that's true, and but I think it's a trend in like big clubs bringing in like ex players to help manage the team, like because an ex player of a certain stature has automatic goodwill with the fans. Like think Frank Lampard at Chelsea or Ole at Man U. What isn't Pep like an ex Barcelona player?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, actually, yeah, Pep is indeed an ex-Barcelona player.
So like player like I feel like having if a player of like like legend status which Xavi is like helps like it by like it allows you I feel to do a more long term plan because it gives I feel like the fans are willing to be more lenient with such a person who than with an outside manager. So like it might just buy them enough time to like rebuild their squad.
I definitely see that. I think what generally like worries me is like when we narrow like or when clubs narrow themselves into like picking former members who could like obviously like pan out to be like really good and like speaking to the success that Lampard is having at Chelsea, for instance, that is like a very good case. But I worry that that means that you never like clubs don't always let themselves like explore and like recruit new and exciting coaching talent. So I don't know. I just it doesn't really expand the football bubble that exists already, but that's more of like a structural thing as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
from the speaking like moving from the top of the league to the bottom, obviously, Celta survive barely. Leganes, Mallorca, and Espanyol are officially relegated, so they'll be moving on to the second tier. So, I mean, stuff, but I don't think anyone was particularly surprised, to the best of my knowledge.
yeah. And I mean, the season has been a weird season, and I mean, it's always sad to see a team go down. It's never an easy. It's never, especially if you're a diehard fan of the team. Like just watch them go down. I'm sure isn't the easiest
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So the other league, I mean, I don't think we're even going to mention Liga because that's been done for a while. But a league that's still ongoing is Serie A, and it looks like Juve. Well, whilst they might not have mathematically clinched the title at time of recording, it looks like they're very well on their way to winning another title. This time under Maurizio Sarri. Do you think there have been like rumblings about like is Sari really going to be like is he the right coach for a team like Juve whose like primary priority is like winning at all costs, and we know like Sari to be very much like he wants to play a certain way. Do we think him winning this title will secure his job for another year?
I mean, I think it will, right? In the sense that, like, I mean, if he can progress in Champions League, definitely helps secure his job. But I mean, for a Juventus fan, the bare minimum is to win the title, the Serie A title. Like they've won it for, is it like 7 or 8 years running? It's an absurd dominance. And so, I mean, it's not the easiest win they've had, but I mean, a win is still, a championship is still a championship. So I think he secures his job for a bit, but I mean, they have to build on, and they have a couple more years with Ronaldo, and probably try and win the Champions League, which has
You think a
eluded them.
couple? Like how
Yeah,
many
I
is a
mean,
couple like, you know?
two, three.
Mm, yeah, I guess that's technically a couple. I got into this whole thing where I was asking when if I asked you for a couple of ideas, how many ideas would you give me with some of my roommates? So it was a whole thing. So I was like, I had to verify, and I think a couple should be like minimum 2 to 3, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it's honestly like for me, it's just like as we're just talking, I'm like, it's crazy to just think that some of the legends are retiring, like Ronaldo and Messi, like they could be gone in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of crazy, and hopefully, I mean, it'll be a very sad day, obviously. Although I do firmly believe Ronaldo will have to be wheeled off the field. Like he is not going to live out of his own volition. So there's
Yeah,
that.
I mean, thing is, like a player of his caliber and his fame can always like go and make tons of money. Make like he might lose the like ability or the strength to play at maybe the top tier, but he can always go to like maybe like an American or maybe the Chinese league and make a ton of money there. And I mean, if he wants to keep playing, but it would be sad to just see him no longer at the top of his game. And one thing I was looking forward to in the spring before the whole COVID hit was to go and see a couple of the games live. Hopefully, I get to see them live the like before they retire.
Yeah, well, I hope that's your case as well. But at the bottom of Serie A, we know Spal, Brescia, Lecce pretty much done for. Although Spal might have fighting chance, it's one of those things. If like eight different things go right, they might still be good. But it's not looking too good for them. And obviously, another league that's closed out is the Bundesliga, where Paderborn and Düsseldorf officially relegated, and Bremen survived this the relegation playoff. And obviously I do pay attention to Werder Bremen, particularly from like a USMNT point of interest, with them having Josh Sargent, who's been making his like debut and then more appearances this season. But yeah, I don't know, the bottom of the leagues, there's nothing too surprising, I would say the most interesting relegation battles happening in the Prem. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Prem is gonna. It seems like it's gonna go down to the live wire, and I mean, could make for a great story. Like Aston Villa could have a great escape, or Bournemouth could have a great escape. Like Bournemouth suddenly goes on a two-match winning streak against City and Arsenal, and suddenly it's a different story. It's a different ending to their season. So,
All right, and we'll be back with some of those great examples from history, some great relegation escapes in a minute. Welcome back to Football Asides. OG is joining me to talk about some great relegation escapes. And OG, what do you have for me? What's the first relegation story you have for me?
so, I mean, this is. I mean, I guess it's one of the classic relegation escapes. Um, I mean, it involves Manu. I mean, the club I hold dear. I mean, Manu wasn't the one being relegated. It was West. It was the West Ham United like '06-'07 season and the end to their crazy season. Um, like coming up, like the previous season, they had qualified for like the UEFA Cup, which was like the Europa League. Um, they had finished eighth in the league, which is a solid place to be. And then they began the season by signing some names that we might know, like Javier Mascherano and Carlos Tevez. Um, the interesting thing is their signings were actually investigated for impropriety, uh, and so it became a whole thing because would they be deducted points for like doing improper signings? And I mean, if they like, and luckily for them, they just got a 5.5 million pound fine, and they avoided a point relegation deduction, which really like helped them. Um, they got new owners mid-season, and they replaced the coach. I feel like a lot of those relegation battles are like we replace the coach, and then suddenly we do better. And then the crazy thing is they were in the relegation zone from like game week 16 through game week 36. They were welded to the bottom, and then they had a great escape in their last 9 games. They won 7 of them, including wins over Arsenal and Man United, who they beat on the last day. Man United had already been crowned champions, and in that 9 game streak, they only dropped points to Chelsea and Sheffield United, who were relegated that season.
Wow, that was like wild. It's crazy, like that season. I mean, like it's kind of crazy when you think about like the people who like how the league has changed since then. Like Dimitar Berbatov was at Spurs. Like, isn't that crazy? And Drogba was still at
Yeah.
Chelsea, and
Yep.
Ronaldo was at United. It's kind of insane when you think about how much the league has
Yeah.
changed over from the time of the Hammers escape from relegation. So what made this like particularly appealing or interesting to you?
I mean, for me, it's just the fact that like part of the like apart from just the regular like football, like oh, are they playing well on the field? It's they had a whole legal battle that could impact them, right? Like even after the whole season was over, um, like Sheffield sued them because they felt like sued them and threatened to take them to like the equivalent of like to higher courts then to try and get those points deducted. And I mean, they said this like when I was reading and doing my research, they settled out of court for an undisclosed sum, which I mean, I don't think it will be a small sum, but it's just an interesting idea. Is like relegation battles are sometimes not only about the football on the pitch; it's about like having a good legal department.
That is true. I mean, City wasn't exactly fighting relegation, but they were fighting exclusion from the Champions League, and I guess good lawyers do pay. Good.
Yeah, yeah,
Y-
get the best.
Yeah, wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, I do enjoy a good relegation escape story. So the fast story that I have for you is pretty recent actually. It's the 16-17 season, and it's from Serie A, and it's Crotone. I
Okay,
Yeah, so
tell me what happened.
to set the scene, right, like Max Allegri's Juve have just like won the title with like 91 points. Like they're 4 points ahead of the second place Roma. Maurizio Sarri is still at Napoli. Like all the good characters like bopping about in Serie A. And like you even have like Edin Dzeko like with 29 goals. And the
Wow.
funny part is that is five less goals than the entire Crotone team scored that entire season. So just anyways,
Wow.
yeah. So you have that, right? But like, so this is Crotone's like fast top flight season, and it was just like off to like a miserable start, basically. Like in the 10 games, they were not up to like the 10 games. They were just miserable. The fast 10 games were just so bad, and then they were bottom of the league with just 2 points, and they had no home.
Wait, 2 points?
Yeah, for the fast 10 games. So to just two draws
Wow.
straight up. And like they couldn't even play at their stadium because it wasn't up to scratch. So they didn't even have a home stadium. So it was like, well, great. So the funniest, well, not the funniest thing really, but like an interesting part is like they only spend 2 weeks outside of the relegation zone, and that was the first week and the last week. That's like the number. Yeah, so it's like crazy, right? So they'd only before April of the season, they'd only won like 3 matches, and they were like everybody was like, okay, they're gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they had like a really really incredible end of the season run, and it took points from like so many people, like, so many teams, including like the two Milan teams, and like it was just, yeah. So
That actually is like crazy. Like 2 points after 10 games.
like, right? Can you imagine that? I just like telling your boss is like, yeah, actually, there was potential 30 points here. We've only gotten two. We'll be back. Like, we'll get back to you on that.
Like, I mean, did they change managers? Did they do anything? Like, what? I mean, you're halfway through the season and you only have 2 points. I feel like things have to change.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's like so in this relegation escape, right? Like the main rivals were Pescara and Palermo, sorry,
Yeah.
not Palermo. Right? They were like basically deemed useless, and they were supposed like to be going down, and they were like 11th points away from like 17th place Empoli. So then within 8 games to go, like that's when they started this like really incredible win, and they began with like a 2-1 win over Chievo, and in the process, and then which made them like snap them within 5 points of safety. And then there was a 7-game run without a win in the process. After this result, like the manager David Di Nicola was declared that if Crotone stayed up, he would cycle from Crotone to Turin, which is like 1,300 kilometers.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, did he do it?
No, we'll get to it. So, like 1 week later, right? They beat Milan 2-1, and then they went to the last two games. They went into the last 2 games 1 point away from safety, and then like they lost to Juve like 3-0, and then they end of the the 7 match unbeaten run that they were on, and then going
Yeah.
into the last day, but they still had a chance, right? So I told you that Empoli were their relegation rivals in this whole shtick. So they were playing already relegated Palermo, Empoli, and Crotone took on Lazio. So they went on
Oh,
and beated fifth place Lazio, and they managed to do it by 3-1. And then
wow!
Empoli
On
like
the last
on
day.
the last day, and then Empoli like fell 2-1 on to their Palermo, who are already, like as I mentioned, relegated. And yeah, and they finished 17th on 34 points. And obviously, the coach did keep his promise, and he did cycle 1,300 kilometers.
Wow. I mean, he got fit. Like he got really fit after
Yeah, it's
that.
like talk about a preseason, you know?
I mean, what happened to them next season? Did they were they able to stay up or?
I believe they got relegated the next season, but I would like to double check what happened in 18 19.
Wow, that's
What was
actually a
that? No,
crazy
17
story.
18. Wow.
Like
Numbers.
I'm still like like shocked at like the 2 points after 10 games.
Isn't that insane? Just like 10 games
Like
with 2 points. Yeah.
I mean, at that point, you just start packing the bus to try and get draws.
Yeah.
Like you
Honestly, you
play
could just
very
like
defensive,
humbly bow
structured
out.
shape.
But then, I mean, they managed to stay up, which is like
Yeah,
impressive. And I think it's like one of the things I love about sports, like that a team that were that bad at the beginning with like a little bit of luck and just like really grinding it out at the end, they were able to survive.
yeah. No, it's. I mean, the table is always like changing, and it's like I mean, for like we're seeing it happen. Like Leicester was comfortably in third, and now they're fighting for their Champions League spot. So
Yeah.
like life can come at you really quickly.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. What's another really good relegation story you found?
So I mean, this is not like traditional relegation story in the sense that like it came down to the last day, but I mean, it's just a great story in like in what it sets up for the next year. And this is a Leicester City escape of like the 14-15 season. Um, Leicester like came in like they had some of the names. It wasn't quite the team that will go on to win the Premier League in the most shocking like Premier League win quite yet, but it was a year before it, and you could say like without this escape, like we wouldn't have seen like N'Golo Conte, we wouldn't have seen like that Leicester City like dream season happen. But I mean, some of the highlights of this season, it's like they were the bottom of the table from game week 13 through game week 31.
That's crazy.
So like they were literally at the bottom of the table. And I mean, at that point you're probably saying you have what 5 more matches, maybe you write off your season and you're like, call it a day. But no, they didn't. They won 7 of their last 9 games to climb out of relegation. They ended up finishing the season 14th. And I mean, that just set them up. Like, I mean, that team had some of the spine that like makes up the Leicester's team till today. It had Jamie Vardy, it had Kasper Schmeichel, it had Drinkwater. And I mean, for me, what's really fascinating is they stuck with their coach like the entire time. They stuck with Nigel Pearson,
Hmm.
and
People
I
are
mean
really
that it
upset
was
when they brought in Claudio Ranieri, like at the end, right? Like the next season.
yeah. I think it was a season after. Was it?
Yeah, I mean, he got them uh prem title, so
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. So
can't complain
they
too much
stuck with
after that.
yeah, you can't complain. But they're stuck with nine. Like in just looking at various relegation stories, it's like a lot of the times they just keep changing coaches, and they're stuck with their coach the entire time, and they were rewarded. And then they go on to do some of the best piece of summer business over the summer, and they build a title-winning championship, that title-winning team that goes from 14th in the Premier League to literally number one out of nowhere. So I mean, it's not traditional and like it came down to the last day, but they were stuck at the bottom of the table for what is it like 18 of the 18 weeks, and so but they made it out.
Yeah, you really
So
like to hear it, and especially like when you know that the next year brings like one of like probably like the best like win of like the Premier League trophy we've seen like in a while, in like probably ever. I would say it's like probably the most famous is just in how unpredictable it was. It's just like it's very
Yeah,
unlikely that we will see another like Leicester or like basic a team that's of that caliber and stature and standing in the league lift the Prem.
yeah.
So that's
No, I
crazy,
mean,
yeah.
the thing is, like, I don't never say never. I feel like there are a lot of leagues that are just primed for that, like, team that just comes out of nowhere and does it. Like, I mean, now it's harder with all the money in the sport and all the players, but I mean, you have a good scouting department, identifies stars, identifies players, and I think you can have a good run at the title.
So what's another, what
So
is like if you had to like if you were a betting man, right? What would you say the next Leicester would be?
if I were a betting man, um, I mean, I think Sheffield United has put together quite a good season. Maybe if they get a couple good signings, they could potentially push for that title. Like, I mean, keep in mind they just came up from the championship, so like from the championship to the Premier League title in 2 years now, that's a story. But I mean, I don't know.
It's hard to call.
It's hard. It's hard to call, and that's what makes their title all the more like impressive. It's like they had like 1,000 to 1 odds, and yet they still did it.
Yeah, I would say I would put like my money in for a Wolves kind of team. I would say, I mean, again, I think as you mentioned, it's like the odds are just so poor. Like it's kind of laughable to mention it, but like you just said, I mean, Leicester did make it happen. So if I was to throw in one of those odds to happen, like at some point down the line, I'll probably throw in a Wolves, assuming they continue to be run as they are now. I think they're a neat and tidy
Yeah,
team, and I think they can, with like a little bit of like investment around some of the edges, I think they could like really take some teams by surprise.
yeah, no, definitely, and like, well, I feel like there was a period when it's like Man United played Wolves like every other week,
Yeah, they definitely
and
became the bogey team for United. Just could not. Yeah.
yeah, and for a lot of teams in the Prem, and it's just impressive. But like for me, I've started to consider Wolves like part of like the Premier League ether in the sense that like they have a great coach,
Is it
and
because of Nuno's
like you
calming
said,
beard?
yeah, it is a good
Yeah,
beard.
he definitely has a very solid beard. Beards are very hard to
Yeah,
do for most people that I've seen, and he's killing it.
he's killing it. I mean, I'm not sure if they'll be able to hold on to like some of their stars, like Adama
I think
Traore.
they can actually. I mean, one, I think they're helped by the economy, and they're also helped by the fact that like these, they will be starters like at the Wolves team, and Wolves is actually like competing. Like you know what? Like they were in the championship literally 2 seasons ago, and they are now like in. They could make a deep run in the Europa League. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
think there's a
I mean,
lot of they have a lot of things they can sell to their talent.
yeah, and this, I mean, if the Europa League goes their way, they could be in the Champions League next season.
Yeah. So I do have another story, another relegation story for you. And this one will
Okay.
be sort of a throwback because I came across it when I was researching this and I was like, this is too good. It's delightful. So we're taking you back to 98-99 Bundesliga, and it
Oh
is
wow.
Eintracht Frankfurt. Jesus, English. I guess technically German. So this is the final day of the season. So you have like five teams that are fighting to avoid relegation, and including Frankfurt, who like at this point they will be facing the Champions League contenders, Kaiserslautern. There, so it's like one of those things where like you really did need like it's like one of those things where like you really did need like a so so they had
Oh,
You had when Frankfurt were playing, they took a 4-1 lead, but they still like were likely to be they were going to be relegated because of the goal differential. So like even then, like I mean, this is at the point in the Bundesliga where there are no relegation playoffs, and like that was it. Like if you finish in the bottom three, you are getting the drop. No ifs, ands, or buts. There was like no fighting chance for you.
oh,
So right, you have like these. So they scored like the last three. So of the 4-1, when the game was at 4-1, they had scored 3 goals in 12 minutes. In 12 minutes.
wow, that's
So one
impressive.
of these other teams that were in this potential contention for um, relegation was Nuremberg, and they had at that point in the game they'd scored against Freiburg, which still meant that at 4-1, regardless of how impressive that was, Frankfurt were going to be relegated on goal difference. But in like the 89th minute, with literally seconds to go, Jan Agie, I do not know how to pronounce this lovely gentleman's last name, so we're gonna go with Jan. Jan scored a last minute goal, literally seconds to go, with to like give them 5-1. And then the other
Okay.
thing that also helped them, obviously, another team that was in this contention is Rostock won their game 3-2, which confirmed their survival. So Nuremberg, who had started the match day in 12th place, literally 4 places away from the relegation zone, were relegated by goals scored. Yeah.
Wow.
Talk about a tough day at the
Wow.
office.
Yeah, you go from 12th to being out of the league.
I would be so upset. So
That's
upset.
rough. Yeah, like I mean, wow. I mean that's just the whole thing. Like if you're not mathematically safe, you have to play hard till the end.
Yeah. So those were my two big stories in terms of relegation escapes. Do we have some? I did have a few more honorable mentions. How about you? Do you have some?
Yeah, I was just looking more like at teams that just like didn't escape or maybe like got relegated and it was just interesting. And I looked at like one team that caught my eye is Newcastle. Sorry for the Premier League focus. That's what I've watched mainly, but Newcastle in 0809, they went through like 4 or 5 different managers during this season, including bringing back their legend. Why am I blanking on his name? Like oh yeah, they brought back Alan Shearer, and
Mm-hmm.
they still got relegated. And then the owner put them for sale, then withdrew the sale, and now they're back on sale right now with the whole Saudi takeover story going on. So
Yeah, that's yeah. So that's brilliant. Newcastle is always like a fascinating story. Like Newcastle and Newcastle fans are some of my favorite people to just engage with. They're just so connected to the club, and there's also just so much drama and nonsense that generally occurs within the club that there's
yeah,
always a good story. It is.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're not emotionally invested in it, it is entertaining to watch, but it's incredibly difficult for the fans, seems.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like heart wrenching. And I mean, Newcastle has historically been a very, very big club. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Alan Shearer still has a couple records in the Premier League in terms of like the goals the guy scored. Um, Unfortunately, he was never on a title winning side. But I mean,
I
maybe
think
is it
Harry
that
Kane might be able to get that record. He just
possibly? I
hit,
mean,
yeah, he just hit 200, yeah.
yeah. Oh wow, yeah. And Harry Kane definitely can get the record. I thought he had 200 goals for Spurs, not all of them in the Premier League.
I know he hit 200, but I believe it was in the Prem, but I could be incorrect on that particular specific.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mm.
But no, that would be awesome if Harry Kane can. I mean, I'm looking at like, I mean, the Premier League like has some really young strikers who could potentially do it. So we'll see, we'll see. But no, that was a story I found interesting. Like you go through five different managers in a season.
Yeah, my last shout out that it would not be a relegation story if we did not include Sunderland. And I was
Oh,
thinking specifically 2013-14 Sunderland. Like, like Chelsea just won the league. Can you believe Liverpool finished sixth that year? And
yeah, wow.
yeah, and then Sunderland like finished 16th that year. So that year also you had like Aguero, as who I contend is truly like perhaps like the best Premier League striker I've seen in a bit. And like you had like Sanchez and Benteke like scoring goals. Like what? That's that's when you know we're in a different time. When you
Yeah,
have a
yeah,
Sanchez and Benteke on the same in the same sentence and scoring goals.
yeah, wow.
Yeah. So they basically it did not look well. Like I mean, they were at the bottom of the league after 33 games and they still had to like go to Chelsea and Manchester United and it looked basically they were dead in the water for all intents and purposes. But they actually went and won 2-1 at Stamford Bridge and then they ended Jose Mourinho's unbeaten run, which is funny. Unbeaten home run, I should say.
Wow.
And yeah, which like began their 4-match winning run where they also beat United 1-0. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
then they
I,
beat West Brom 2-0 in the penultimate weekend, which made them climb to 14th. I mean, they lost on the last match day to Swansea, but they were like plenty safe then.
yeah, they had secured safety. Yeah, I mean, winning can beget more winning. It's like you win at a big team, and suddenly you're more confident, and you go win again, and you keep winning, and maybe you get out. So that's a good story.
Yeah,
Good, good
it's
one.
a lovely story, especially knowing what's happened to Sunderland
Sunderland
since.
since then.
Yeah,
Sunderland till I die.
yeah. All right. We'll be right back with some sideline asides. Welcome back to Sidelines Aside. This is a segment on our show where we discuss a random question that's popped into our minds recently, usually football related, but we make no guarantees. So for today's Sidelines Asides, OG, I pose to you European Super League, yay or nay? What do we think? Where do we land?
Uh, nay. I think nay, but with caveats, right? I think the way the game is going, where a lot of it is focused on the revenue, I think we're trending towards a position or place where like the big teams know that when they play each other, those are like the biggest and highest revenue events, especially on TV. So I won't be surprised if in the next couple years you start seeing the big teams start forming leagues or like maybe we're more friendly and that eventually becomes a type of league. But I mean, I don't particularly support it because I mean you form a European Super League and you get to miss out on teams like Leicester City, who like we're talking earlier like came back and had a magical Premier League run. And I mean traditionally they wouldn't be in a European Super League, right? So I think those are like I think for the Cinderella stories in the various leagues, I don't think a European Super League really helps the game go forward.
I
How about
am
you? What are your thoughts?
I'm in a similar position where yeah, I'm conceptually just like if you say European Super League, I'm just like no because I agree that like there's one of the things I love about football is indeed the slaying of the giants and like when you have a European Super League, you won't have like a minnow beat a big team on their day. You get
Yeah,
that. But then there's also the point that for all intents and purposes, I mean, the European Cup or the Champions League was a product of like the big league, the big teams threatening to go on and form their own Super League. So for all intents and purposes, we are seeing the makings of a European Super League. And when you look at generally the latter group stages of the Champions League, it's pretty much like consistently the same kind of teams.
Yeah,
I don't think I think everyone thinks this will be like greatly exciting because all these teams definitely have like the best talent, they have the best players. But I do like I don't know, like it's kind of like the Super League is sort of like Marvel movies, like big blockbusters, and then like as a lot of like the other parts of the league are like indie art movies, and I like both of those. So I'm not sure if I would want to like just to watch the Super League, even though like all the big talent would be there. So that's all to say. I have no good answer, but instinctively, I think no. But in order for that to be like a no that also benefits the game, we need to like think of a way to help sustain like the smaller clubs and
yeah,
actually have them be viable and competitive so that we just don't have a super league in everything but name.
yeah. No, I agree with that, and especially like coming out of COVID, I'm sure a lot of clubs' finances have been hit, especially in the lower tiered leagues. So it's definitely going to be something like the various leagues will have to think through how to make the leagues more competitive going forward. So,
Yeah. Well,
fine.
with that, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on the pod. I was greatly enjoyed your company. I know a lot more about relegation than I did before. So, and I hope our listeners enjoyed this like fun storytelling venture that we went on. Thank you so much for your time, OG.
Thank you for having me, Glow. It's been awesome.